Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Meet the Contestants Behind the Pitch, where we bring on individuals who have won pitch or business competitions at either the local, state, or federal level. Now, today's episode is a special one because we're going to be talking to winners. One of the largest business competitions in the state of Michigan, I believe, and that is the Start Garden 100. You'll hear a little more about that in just a few moments. Myself, I'm Ed Garner. I'm a regional director here with the Michigan Small Business Development Center. And the SBDC is a statewide network funded through a cooperative agreement through the U.S. Small Business Administration, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and local host institutions around the state of Michigan. Now, some of our services include no cost, one-on-one business consulting. It's all confidential as well. We also do secondary market research for companies, and also a lot of education and training programs, including programs like today, where we try to bring timely and informative information to you. Also, we work in the technology space, and we help companies with technology, commercialization, as well as have several other specialized teams. Now, after today's broadcast, if you like something you hear and you want to meet with one of our consultants one-on-one, you can simply do so by going to our website at michigansbdc.org. And right on the home page there, you'll see a blue button where you can request free services, and you will be contacted generally within 24 to 48 hours to get you set up with one of our business consultants. So great. Now today, because this is a special episode, we got a special moderator. So I want to bring to the stage our guest moderator for today, one of the directors of Start Garden, Lori Sapinski. Lori, why don't you join us?
Hi, Ed.
Hey, Lori, thanks for coming on today to talk to our contestants today. So I'm going to turn it over to you to tell the audience a little bit about what Start Garden is and what the Start Garden 100 is. So take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, as Ed said, I'm Lori Sapinski, one of the directors at Start Garden. We have been an organization in existence since 2012, and we exist primarily to help entrepreneurs get to their first million. That's our mission statement, and we really try to achieve that. One of the ways that we do that, and one of the primary ways that people know us, is through our pitch competitions that provide early stage capital. So we actually have a monthly pitch competition called 5x5 Night. And that is, like I said, it's monthly. 5 people pitch for a winning prize of $5,000 each month. But today we're going to talk primarily about the Start Garden 100, which is something that we started in 2018. And we've kind of iterated it through the years, but it is now, I believe, like Ed said, one of the biggest pitch competitions in the state of Michigan. How it works is that we ask entrepreneurs to submit a video of 100 seconds of your business idea. We select 100 people. 100 people then get $1,000 to kind of work towards our big demo day event. And demo day this year is on the 17th of September. At that event, all the 100 entrepreneurs are in the room competing for 10 prizes worth another $20,000 each. So $20,000 in grant money is a great prize. But as we'll hear from a lot of the discussion today, the money is great, but there's a lot of other benefits to being part of a pitch competition. So with that, I mean, I could go on and on about Start Garden. We're an organization that really works very hard to support entrepreneurs, not just financially, but connect to a lot of other resources, including networks and other entrepreneurial support organizations. But today, with regard to pitching, I think that's what we're going to focus on. So I think with that, I will bring on our first guest. Our first guest is Aiye Akhigbe, and she was a Start Garden 100 winner last year. Hi there.
Hi, Laurie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. So this is what we're going to do. As I introduce everybody, since we're here to talk about pitching, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself in the form of about a minute-long pitch.
Okay. Well, my name is Akhigbe. I'm a Navy veteran, and I'm also the owner of Sticky Spoons Jam. At Sticky Spoons, we preserve the flavors of Michigan summers in jars. Our bestseller is our blueberry lavender. It's also my favorite. We work with local, small family-owned farms during the peak seasons here in Michigan from May to October, and use the fruits they grow to create flavors, like I said, blueberry lavender, apricot rosemary, you name it. Our jams are versatile. Whether you like toast, you want to make a cocktail, we make a jam for that. In the last 4 years, I have competed in various competitions, and winning Demo Day last year was absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to sharing more about my experience with Stock Garden.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you in a little bit. So I think our next guest is going to be Andrea Wallace.
Hello.
Hey there. And Dre was also one of our Stark Garden 100 winners. Actually, you actually won 2 times. So
2 times, 2 different companies.
2 different companies. So as we're doing,
but yeah, so my name is Dre Wallace. Oops, I'm sorry. Did it interrupt you?
No, go ahead. Was there no, go ahead. Tell us about yourself in a minute.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my name is Dre Wallace. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called OPNR. And I come from a background of being both a touring musician and also a developer. And so OPNR is a live entertainment platform that helps performers like musicians and comedians get booked both on stage and also on screen. And so we leverage data from tens of thousands of fans across the country to help those same concert organizers and venues that are doing the booking to actually sell more tickets. So whether it's a touring concert or a club show at one of your favorite venues, private comedy roast at your house, or a really cool house party, we basically make it easy to turn really good talent into fun, unforgettable experiences across the country.
Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. And the last person is Vanessa Frias. And Vanessa, this is kind of a little bit of an interesting twist. So Vanessa is applied for the competition, and she is not going to be participating this year only because she is in one of our other programs. And so she can apply again next year, but she's got a great business, and she is one of our 5x5 night winners just this past month. And I think her perspective will be really interesting because she applied, she went through the process, and then was not selected. So that's kind of an interesting take, and we can kind of joke about that a little bit. But it's something that comes along with entering pitch competitions. Is sometimes you don't get selected. So we can talk about that. But now I want you to give us a little background about yourself in about a minute.
So my name is Vanessa Frias. I'm the owner of Willowbrook Farms. We're located in Cassopolis, Michigan. We own a 35-acre livestock farm in which we do classes on agritourism, and we raise pasture-raised meats for people, communities, schools, organizations that kind of look like this. I know there's a glare, but that is chicken. Those are chicken thighs. We also have eggs that we sell as well. And all of those go to all around the state of Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana, and hopefully here shipping. But our main focus is providing nutrient-dense, healthy food, getting people to know their farmer and know where their food comes from. In addition to that, just getting the word out there about why it's important to know all those things. So that is Willowbrook Farms in a nutshell.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I think now we're going to bring everybody else back on. Great. Okay. So this is just going to be I think, a great dialogue. I don't want this to be really formal. I want everybody to kind of share their experiences. I mean, it's perfect timing right now because we are literally in the middle of the process of everybody getting prepared for the Start Garden 100. So hopefully, a lot of our participants will be watching and get some, really good input from you guys, feedback not only about this process, but you all have been in many other kind of pitch competitions. This one is a little bit unique in that for the Start Garden 100, the entry was a 100-second video, which is kind of, there's not a lot of time for a lot of information. So preparing for that is always a little tricky. And then at the end of the event, at the real event, you're not really getting up on stage and doing a pitch. You're presenting prior to, you give the judges an executive summary, but then at the event that day, you're just going to be talking to the judges for a few minutes. So not a lot of opportunity to stand up there and do something that's, terribly rehearsed. So what I'd like to do is maybe start out by saying, and I'll just call on you, and it doesn't matter what order, what motivated you in the first place? And I know money, and you can say that, but in addition to that, what motivated you to enter the Start Garden 100? Let's start with Aiye.
Well, the first time I applied was actually in 2021, and I had just begun the process of trying to scale my business. I'd Googled how to scale a business and pitch competitions came up. Then I Googled pitch competitions in the state of Michigan and Start Garden came up. I think I did that like 2 weeks before the due date. So I submitted for that. The 20,000 would have been spectacular at that point. But what it allowed me to do was also learn more about my business. I like to tell people that win, lose, or indifferent, you should still apply because you don't know what the end result will be. But for me, it was, how do I scale? And that literally was the start of me scaling my business.
Okay, that's great. So that was in 2021. So Dre, you were in the very first one in 2018? Were you 2018?
Yeah, 2019.
Okay.
So I did 2019 and 2022. So yes, money was definitely a motivating factor, but for each time it was for completely different reasons. Because the first time in 2019, it was with my very first company that I ever had, and we just kind of needed money to get started. So I think it was really more around, how do I prepare myself for this thing, which I know is also going to prepare me for, there was an accelerator that we had just applied for. And so I knew if I did this, that it would also kind of help to prepare me for that, because the process of preparing for the 100 kind of pushes you through, frankly, doing some stuff and figuring out some things that you sometimes avoid when you're first starting out. Like, nobody wants to do the hard stuff, especially when it comes to the financials or whatever. So it kind of helped me push through that piece of it. The second time with Opener, it was much more, we were 2-3 years in by then, more established, and I needed the money for a very specific thing. Like, there was I need $20,000 for this marketing effort that we have to do, because we were in the middle of trying to figure out some customer acquisition strategies. So 2 different companies, definitely needed the money, but for 2 different purposes. But we also got a lot more out of it, than just the money. And I think something a little bit different each time.
Right. And Vanessa, what about you?
So I applied because I wanted to get I guess I wanted to have a better start on my business. I mean, we have a good start right now, but I just needed some extra cash for growing and accelerating our business. I wasn't picked because I'm also in another program through Start Garden, and so we were eliminated from that. But I have been eliminated from pitch competitions before, and and I just keep going. I don't ever want to get to a point where I, get down on myself or feel like I can't do it, because all this is just practice for the future. And so if you don't win it the first time, you got to get up and you got to keep trying. Don't get don't get your feelings hurt. You know, it's part of it. You just keep moving. If you get your feelings hurt and you get down on yourself, then you won't do it. And then you miss the opportunity to grow your business. So no business is that easy to get up and going. And if it's that easy, everybody would be doing it. So you just got to keep moving.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, when they think of pitch competitions, they think of, you know, entrepreneurial pitch competitions. They think of people going up in front of Shark Tank and, you know, but there's so many different ways that pitch competitions are held across the state and across the country, actually. And, you know, when we came up with the way we wanted to introduce ours, and I'm trying to go back and remember how we even came up with the idea of the 100-second video. But that's, you know, a pretty unique way, I think, of entering a competition, because especially if you've not done it before, you're not really sure what we're looking for, what we're asking for, or what shouldn't be included in a 100-second video. And so tell me a little bit about how did you approach your video, and, you know, what did you think should be included if you only had a very short period of time? Anybody can answer.
I knew because the first time I applied, I was just like, I'll just say this would help my business scale. We were on the point of scaling, but it took me 3 years, by the way, after my first no in 2021. It took me 3 years to reapply. But what I got from the first time was feedback from Lori, which I still have my notes from the conversation we had. I still have my notes. And so the second time last year in 2024, I became more specific. And that's what Lori said to me in 2021. She goes, you were a little bit all over the place. You need to hone in on exactly what you need this money for. And when I got to be a mentor this year, I really explained to most people that, yes, $20,000 seems like a lot of money for a small business, but in fact, it really isn't. So if you can hone in on your need for the business and you approach your pitch that way, it would make it a lot easier for people to understand you and a lot easier for you to express what the money will do for you. So I honed in on specifically what I would use $20,000 for.
Okay, great. Dre, what about you?
Yeah, I think so. The first time, again, it was a little bit different because we were like just coming out of the gate, like getting started, first company. Kind of had a decent idea of what I was doing, but also not, you know, but I had done a lot of Googling. And then the year before, so in 2018, which was the first year, I think that the 100 happened, I attended that event. So I had a couple friends who were selected as part of the 100. So I remember walking around and kind of getting like, I was like, okay, now I have an idea of like kind of how this is working, a little bit different than like traditional pitch. But like for my business, like I think I could do it, you know, like this. So like I'm really more focused on, hey, we're just getting started, but really wanted to share a lot about the idea itself. But also, again, you know, just as you were saying about how to spend that $20,000, like what I would actually do with it. Like I tried to be really clear about that. And then really the same thing with the second time too. It was, I had very specific things that I was doing it with. And by then, like, you know, some of the judges, like you kind of get to know people in the ecosystem by then. And so it was people understood a little bit more some of the background because I had talked to a lot of these people before, but I was very, very, very specific around like, here's why we really need this money and why we need it right now. And here's what we're going to use it for. And here's the milestones that I believe, you know, that we're going to hit if we get it. So.
Right. Vanessa, what about you?
For me, I focus on two things. I think when I approach this video is number one, I focus on how do I kind of pull at the heartstrings of who's watching my video. My business is really emotionally attached to the soil that we are on. So I do pull at the heartstrings when I'm creating a video. In addition to that, I really focus on how can I scale my business with the amount of money that we are getting. So how is this money that I'm going to put in my pocket? How is that going to make my business scale? And those are the two things that I focused on with the 100-second video or any pitch that I give. Those are the two things that I really try to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you're for us especially, for anybody that's been around Start Garden, we definitely, and I guess I believe that this is probably true of most pitch competition, but we want to know how you're going to spend the money, and knowing that the pitch competition money that you're winning in this is not the only money you need. You need money for a lot of different things, and grant money and free money is a great way to approach it, but it's not everything. And so showing how impactful this particular prize money would be is really what is going to get you to the front of the class when it comes to competing against other people. I think in this competition too, one of the unique things is that you're not necessarily competing against the same industry. So there's different categories in the Start Garden 100. There's food, there's tech, there's products, there's social impact, and there's service. And we're not selecting winners based on category. So it's trying to figure out, as an entrepreneur, what can I say about my business, and how can I explain my revenue model in a way that makes me stand out amongst all the other competitors.
Mhm.
So as you guys approached that, and it doesn't have to be just in this competition, but as what do you think you need to zero in on to make yourself stand out? Vanessa?
I think.
I,
Go ahead,
um,
Vanessa.
I think you have to find what's so unique and different about you. For example, I'm a farmer. Well, there's a lot of other farmers out here, but what makes my farm so unique compared to others? What do I bring to the table that differs from any other farmer? And I do focus on that when I talk about my farm. Yes, we're a pasture-raised meat operation, but we also incorporate education into our farm. We also welcome people with open arms onto our farm so they can see where their food comes from, and meet the farmer, which is my husband, myself, and my children. And being able to be emotionally connected to that makes me a lot different than other farmers, because most farmers, they really don't take the time to invite people to their farm or meet them, because they are busy, and I get that. But we want a customer who knows who we are and knows what kind of quality we have. And if they know us, then they will support our product. So that's how we approach our farm.
Mm-hmm. Dre, what about you?
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of it. The storytelling part of somebody understanding like why as the founder or a group of co-founders or whatever is uniquely qualified to like do this thing. So and a lot of it also depends on the kind of pitch competition, and like what the setup is like maybe how you might frame it up. But I think the story piece is really critical. And then if you can then like connect that story to here's how we'll make money, because it's beyond just like a cool idea. An idea becomes a business when you make the first dollar. So but connect these two pieces of like, I love this thing, I do this thing, I'm solving this problem, and hey, also like we figured out how to make money from it, and I think we can make it really this really cool thing. Like we just need a little bit of help along the way. So I think it's kind of like connecting those two pieces to like make them make sense, maybe to a person who doesn't even really understand your industry very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I always say it's how do you link your story to your idea to how you make money.
Mm-hmm.
The story is great. Everyone's got a unique story about how they started their business, how they got the idea. But if you cannot express to someone who's going to fund you how you make money, I think my favorite is when Paul Moore from Start Garden likes to say, who pays for it? You want to be able to express, yes, this idea is great, but it's also feasible to support me to grow. It's not just that this $20,000 is the end all and all for my business. It's just a springboard. This $20,000 will get me somewhere. So it's tie your story to your idea, to your business model, how you make money.
Yeah, I think we're working really hard this year in the process of going through the 100. We've instituted like a lot of touch points, and we had a boot camp this last year, and we're really trying to get people to be able to articulate that arch. It's like, the problem, the solution, and then how does it make money? But then also incorporating your story into it. And I think, we're trying to teach people or have people get to the point where, that whole thing can roll off your tongue, in, a 1 to 3 minute pitch, so that you don't have to, the story behind it is important, but you don't want to get lost in all the details, because initially the details can come later. It's how do you get people interested in what you're talking about, or get people interested in what you're doing. And you only have a short period of time to do that. So, remembering that when you're crafting your pitch, I think, is really important. So when you're doing a pitch, let's talk a little bit about nervousness. How I think everybody can speak to that. So how do you overcome nervousness, whether it's a formal pitch, whether you were doing the Start Garden 100 video? I mean, there's a lot of different ways, whether it's just, talking to somebody that you're, essentially you're pitching when you're talking to somebody about your business. So how do you overcome that?
The way I do it is I really practice my pitch. I practice it when I'm in the shower. I practice it when I'm driving. I practice it with my 7-year-old. I practice it with whoever will listen. And teenagers are the most critical. And I have 2 critical teenagers. And so I practice them with that. And they're like, Mom, you sound fake. Mom, no, you can't. They will tell you the truth. And so by the time I get to pitch, I'm practicing my pitch in my sleep. So the question is, how do you overcome nervousness during the pitch? So I'm nervous every single time I walk on that stage. But that first 10 seconds, if you can get through that 10 to 20 seconds, after that, since you've been practicing for so long, your nerves will ease themselves. You just got to get through that first, maybe 30 seconds. And once you get through that, your pitch will start coming back to you, and then you'll get through it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Like, memorize, to me, it seems like having to memorize something is much more nerve-wracking than just, knowing what you want to say and letting it you say it so naturally. Like, if you practice it more often, it's the way you talk about your business. It in your mind, it switches from something that you're so conscious of what you're saying, and you're trying not to forget to say things. But if you say it often enough and you're really telling the truth and you believe it, then it becomes natural, and it's not really a pitch anymore. It's just literally you talking about your business. So how do you feel like there's a point at which you transitioned to being able to do that?
Well, you know what? The biggest thing I can say is, for example, I'm in Aiye, and that has helped me. When you are practicing with other people and you're conversational, anytime I also go to farmers markets. So anytime I'm at a farmers market, I'm always conversational. And before I get on that stage, I do tell myself, act as though you're talking to a person at the farmers market, because you're in a calm, relaxed environment where you know your stuff. Like, I know my business in and out. And just like everybody else, you know it in and out. So you have to be conversational. And once you get past, like I said, that 30 seconds of chaos in your brain, you will calm down.
Dre, what about you?
So I feel like how I manage the nerves is very different depending on the pitch. Like, because sometimes there are certain kinds of pitching doesn't make me as nervous as other kinds. So like pitching from a stage, I found actually doesn't bother me quite as much, because I feel like the people are farther away. So it's like, it feels like they're more removed. But if like the times I pitched to investors, like sitting at a table or in a smaller room, I've definitely been more nervous. And I think well, for one, the stakes are a lot higher, because like trying to get money. So it's a little bit different. But like, I definitely have seen like it's a little bit different depending on the setting. One of the ways that I like, for sure, like just kind of going into the bathroom beforehand, doing a little box breathing and just like recenter thoughts like has definitely really helped me. But I definitely second what Vanessa said. Like, it's definitely a practice thing. I was very anti memorization of a pitch. But then when I was in Techstars Detroit, a lot of like what they had us do was really work out, like, come up with a script for what a 5-minute pitch would be like and practice it until you basically are like dead. And like, so it gets in your head so much that then it's really easy once you've done it so many times, because they had us pitch every single day for 3 months. Every single day, the
Right.
first we would all meet, you had to do a pitch. And so it was, by then it was in your brain so much that it was really easy to pare that down to, if a pitch competition was you only get 3 minutes, it was easy to be like, okay, cool, like I'll just get rid of this, like I know it really well, so it's fine. I just got to make sure I hit this at this time and this at this time. And then again, like if it was for an investor and maybe you get 15-20 minutes, you're like, okay, cool, well I can take this 5-minute thing and then I can elaborate, on these things because I have more time. So like the rehearsing and the really thinking through like the absolutely most important things that have to be in it every single time turned out to be really helpful, even when I didn't want to do it at first.
Right. Right. Aiye, what about you?
Practice, practice, practice. I get very nervous. I know a lot of people are like, well, you win. I was like, yeah, you don't see the before I get on the stage, the hyperventilating, the like, why am I doing this to myself again? But one thing I know is with practice, even when you forget something, you can move on. It's when you stop and try and recollect that memory that's like, the clock is ticking, then you get even more nervous. So
Right.
I've worked with myself on, nobody can read your mind. So if you forget something, just move on.
Right.
I do the memorization part of it. I can actually say, I think every pitch I've given, I can recall it. But I have found that sometimes it has to be conversational. And using the farmer's market trick is great because, like Vanessa, I do a lot of markets, a lot of craft shows, and you get to talk to a lot of people. And it's sometimes you're repeating the same information about your business, but you're engaging different people. So you're adapting your daily pitch to each individual person. But once you get to know your business better, you'll be able to adapt even more, because the way you're explaining, jam to a 5-year-old who just wants a jar of everything on your table versus someone who's a foodie and really wants to know what they can use your jam to is different, but you're still telling them the same thing about your business.
Right. How have you guys utilized, resources to help you prepare for pitch competitions? So if it was Stark Garden 100, or maybe it was, 5x5 night, who did you go to get help?
I use the SBDC actually for Stark Garden 100. I needed research on my competitors. And I know a few names, but I didn't really know much. How many other jam makers were there in the state of Michigan, in Southwest Michigan, along the I-94, I-96 corridor? So I reached out to SBDC, and they had the research to me in about 3 days, which I then incorporated into my executive summary. I had my score mentor read my executive summary. I think there were 3 people at the SBDC that read my summary. I had Ryan Bullhauser I never know how to say his last name. Ryan, we miss you.
Bullheis, yes.
Bullheis. I had him read my summary. I am not afraid to ask for help. Every pitch I do, I actually reach out to somebody in my extended universal support system and ask them, hey, would you listen to it? See if you can help me out, see if I'm missing anything. And the executive summary really was as good as it was because I used every single support system I had. SCORE, SBDC, the WBC, you name it, I used it.
Yeah. How about Vanessa?
I create a circle for myself of people. So Aiye is one of them, just because she's done pitch competitions before I even did any pitch pitches. The only reason why I learned about them is because of my circle. So Aiye was telling me that, hey, you should, think about doing some of these pitches. And she's a pitch coach, so I used her to help me out with a few of them. And then after that, I just kind of did my own research. And one of the other things that I think I do use Chat GPT or AI to kind of help me come up with some ideas, like how do I pitch this? What are some good ideas? And that helps me form my thoughts. I don't use all of the information, but it helps me come up with ideas to be able to pitch some of them. And I think using your resources is really important. I don't try to recreate something. If something's already created, I look at it, I say, okay, how can I use this? How can this work for me? That's the real honest truth. I just talk to people, use my resources.
Yep. And Dre, what about you?
Yeah, first time around, I was just moving back to Grand Rapids from Detroit. So I used a lot of Detroit resources that I knew over there. People at Tech Town, there was an accelerator that we had just finished. So like a lot of the coaches and things like from that, I definitely leaned on heavily to just make sure I had the right information in there. And then the second time around, by then I'd built on a lot of stuff because we had been through 2 accelerators by then. So I had a pretty decent idea of like what should be in a pitch, but again, like every pitch is different. And so specifically, I think for the 100, like I had also attended the event. So I would definitely encourage anybody who, even if you're not in this year, if you're thinking about doing it next year, like come to the event and walk around, talk to people. It gives you a really good idea of what it's like on the day of to be like pitching over and over and over, like almost like 30 seconds here, 20 seconds here,
right.
people, like it gives you a really good idea. So I think, just tapping local resources. You can always tap people at Start Garden. I'm always at Start Garden too, so feel free, to reach out. But there's actually quite a lot of resources around the state of Michigan of people that you can talk to, and that are always, tons of founders are always willing to listen to your pitch. So
yeah. And that's really good advice too. I give that to people all the time with regard to the Start Guard 100, but also even 5x5 night. If you think, a lot of times you hear about the competitions and you think, oh, maybe I'll give that a try. You definitely should come and see what it's like first.
Yes.
Because, you want to know what you're walking into, and it helps you prepare better. So I definitely, I definitely always encourage people to do that.
When I was at the 5x5 night last month, I saw people that were taking notes on how to do it for the next time. So I thought that was pretty cool to see in the audience that people were there to see how to do it for themselves.
Right. So. We're going to kind of switch to demo day now to the, so there's pitching. So there was the video and all that, but then the demo day event is, it's twofold, right? You're at demo day, you're going to be judged by a panel of judges, but you're also then going to be, it's open to the public. So you're going to be talking to potential customers, or you never know, potential investors. It's such an opportunity to connect with folks. So there's kind of a bunch of different dynamics going on all day long. So we totally understand how it's a long day and it's very draining. But and then on top of it, there's actually the visual component because you're there. You've got a table, so you're presenting your business. So there's a lot that goes into it. So maybe talk a little bit about how you prepared for the demo day itself, and maybe even talk about the executive summary too. That's probably a 2-part question. And Vanessa, you can relate this to any any either event, or even like you had mentioned before, going to the farmers markets every weekend is essentially pitching and selling every single weekend, like a demo day. So. That was a mouthful, so you can respond to that however you want. Aiye, I'm going to ask you.
Okay, so the executive summary, I like to tell people that the executive summary is 99% of your grade, and demo day is the cherry on top. During boot camp, early August, I think a lot of people clutched their pearls when I would say that. I was like, no, like seriously, Demo day is the cherry on top. You've done this hard work. You've gone further into your business through your executive summary that most people have never done. Even some people who've been in business 10, 20 years have never really taken an inside look at their businesses like the executive summary makes you do. So for me, the executive summary was, how do I tell my story and let them know that I know how my business runs? My favorite section of that is not as who are you? It's actually how do you make money? My business model, I knew exactly how much it cost me to make everything in my kitchen. I could write out how we truly made money. What's our wholesale? What's our retail? Who are our customers? We know who they are. And then relating all I knew about my business to set up for demo day. If you go to my IG or my Facebook, September 17th to 2024, you'll see what we did. We won at $20,000. We're a food company. We do jam. Charcuterie is huge in the state of Michigan. So I got a charcuterie cutout of 20K. We did cheeses and fruits and meats, and then we laid out our 2 best-selling jams. And you basically got a plate of crackers, and you got your charcuterie, and you got to talk to us about what we did. Most people just wanted to know, how could they buy my jam? Because as they were sampling it, they liked it. I made contacts with various restaurants, but in showcasing my business, I didn't want to showcase it as an everyday jam. I wanted to elevate it for what it was. We are a true value jam. We're not just your off-the-shelf jam. We want you to experience what it means to eat Michigan summers out of a jar. But I was able to tie it all together with my executive summary by saying, look, yes, we make jam, but we make spectacular jam. Mm-hmm. We know how much it costs to make the jam. We know how much you will pay us for the jam, so we know how we make money. But we want you to also experience how we view our company. So my demo, if you want to call it that, was you taking a look at how I see my company. It was fantastical. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a simple setup of try a sample. It was take a walk into fruit and everything you could do with jam.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, again, at Demo Day, there's all different types of businesses. So, yes, there's products, there's food. So you kind of think of obvious ways that people can demo that. But like Dre, for a technology, how did you approach that?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a really good point, because I think depending on the kind of business that you have, I know for me specifically, like I have a music tech company, which is not something that I knew a lot of judges might not be, out of the gate, like really understanding like what we were doing. So it was really important to hone in from a business perspective, like with the executive summary, like regardless of whatever my industry is, and even if they kind of don't understand it, if I can make the business mechanics of what I'm doing make sense to them, then the other stuff is easy breezy, And then if I happen to get somebody who comes along, like who does like understand that, then fabulous. But like I definitely wasn't expecting that. And so I think like really preparing that part of it, also just kind of practically, Demo Day is a long day. Yes. So we know really like dressing for comfort, yes, comfortable shoes, like all that stuff really like helps you, because then it is a lot easier to focus on what you are saying and conversations that you're having with people when your feet aren't hurting. Yeah. That was a lesson that I learned the first year. So definitely would say that, but yeah. I think it was really important for us to be able to tell, a really tight story around the problem, again, because a lot of people might not understand what that problem is unless you're very ingrained in the industry, how we were going to solve it, how we wanted to make money, how we thought we might make more money, in the future off of some other things that could be related to the business. So I think just really focusing on that and really honing in on the market opportunity of like, this is what we're doing today, but it really could, be this, and kind of being, a little bit aspirational about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Vanessa, how do you visually, obviously when you're at a farmer's market, you're selling products, but then if you're also, you're talking about your farm and the farm experience and things like that. How does that translate like visually?
Well, I have visuals there. So my product is when, for example, when they come to the farmers market, there are several ways that people display their items and their food at the farmers market. I have an open glass freezer so people can walk up and see the product. Some farmers market, well, most, all of them actually, they all have closed coolers, or they have the meat in closed freezers, and all you can do is say, hey, I want a package of a ground Italian sausage. When it comes to me, they can go up and say, oh, there's Italian sausage and this is what it looks like, and they can pick it up. And then I ask them questions, what are you going to make with it? How are you going to make it? How can I give you some suggestions? Blase, blase. And that draws people into the farm because they see I have an interest in their health and their food and what they're doing with it. Mm-hmm. But as far as like preparing for markets or preparing for I guess like something like a demo day, I think the biggest thing is showing people what you have to offer, kind of like Aiye did, where she's showing people, she's showcasing her product, where it brings people in. I've done that at farmers market, where I'll cut up samples and give them to people, and then tell them like, this is how we prepare it and this is what we make it with. And then they go straight to the freezer and buy packages of them because they're like, this is what I want. I love the flavor of it. Mm-hmm. And then they say, well, what's another one that you like? And then that's how they continue to buy and buy. And then you say, okay, well, you can get this cheaper if you go to our website and subscribe and save. And then that's how you get the orders and the deliveries and the shipments. And that's how it continues to build your brand and who you are. And then they get to know the farmer. So.
Yep. So going back to judging, I mean, because, you're there, the public is walking around, but prior to that at demo day, the judges are going to walk around. Yes. They're coming. That's the whole point of being there. And to us, we always realize that that's the most nerve-wracking and the source of the most anxiety for all the participants. And every year, it seems like we try to do it so that we reduce anxiety, but it doesn't matter. You know that there's going to be a judge coming around, more than one judge. It used to be that we had the judges coming when the public was in there. So you sometimes didn't know who the judges were, but we realized that was really torture. So we changed it. We changed it so that it was very obvious. Yeah. From 2:30 to 5 o'clock, it will just be judges in the room. Yeah. And then you kind of just stand there and wait because they're not there at your table the entire time. But and sometimes they come up and they've already read your executive summary. They might know a little bit about you. And so every judge is different. We don't give them a script. And so they can either, they can come up with questions, or they might just come up and say, hey, tell me about your business. So you never know what to expect. But I think from Aiye and Dre, who have been at demo day, were you ever asked any kind of question that somebody, from a judge that you didn't have an answer for? And how do you respond to that? Do you feel like that's ever happened?
Not from a judge. I feel like, and this is where I think like Start Garden does a really good job. Like the executive summary is mostly going to force you to figure out the big questions. Like, like if you can nail that part, like you'll probably pretty much be able to, answer any question that a judge might have that's related to your business. Now, if they're interested, like just in like what you're doing, or think what you're doing is really cool, then yeah, like you might get some very, very random questions, from them, some of which might be a little off the map and you might be able to answer, maybe not, but those don't really impact the judging part of it. So it's like, it's fine. I would say like, I definitely did get like some interesting questions from like guests and things like, who walked around. But I think even with a lot of that is, I remember when people would come up, whether it was a judge or, just like a community member, asking, sometimes like they'll come up and introduce you. I would ask them like, hey, and like, what is it that you do? Or like, are you just here, walking around, or like, cause that can give you some context too on maybe why this person has stopped, by your booth if they're not a judge, so like if I find out that they, own 5 music venues, then yeah, I'm going to talk to them very, very differently
Exactly.
than somebody else, who's just like, oh, like, this is like a really cool thing. Like, I love going to concerts and stuff like that. And so I would explain the value of what we're doing, like, really differently to them. So just like anything else, like, kind of knowing who you're talking to definitely, can help.
Yeah.
I actually was more nervous about the executive summary than I was of demo day. The judges, the first time around, let's correct that. So the first time around, I really didn't know much about my business then. In 2021, I literally was just getting myself out there. And so I did not even know what my business model was at that point. So I was very nervous. But this time around, the executive summary kept me awake many nights. I like to tell people that I spent 5 weeks of my life working on my executive summary. I did stay up many nights till 2 a.m. and I got it done. So by the time demo day came around, I was just like, I'm here for the party. Where's AB? Come make a video with me. Somebody play some loud music. I was dancing. I had my neck fan on because it was outside and it was 92 degrees. I had on shoes, my sneakers. I was very comfortable. I was there for the party. I was just there to, in my head, I said to myself, I said, if a judge has read my executive summary and they still have a lot of questions, it means I didn't do a good job. It means that I need to really work more on understanding my business because I wanted someone else to see it and know right away what I was doing. I think one of the weirder questions I won't call it a weird question, but a judge asked me, he goes, so you're gonna make salsa or hot sauce in your kitchen? I said, no, I'm the jam queen. They call me the crazy jam lady for a reason. I plan to make jam forever. He goes, okay, good. And he just walked away. I was like, yes, that was his only question.
There you go.
And, I had a judge who just said, I read the executive summary. It was fantastic. I just wanted to meet you.
That's awesome.
And that was awesome too. So at that point, I think this was about 3 judges. And I was like, okay, they got it. They understood that I know my business and my executive summary was clear to them. And it was just a breeze after that. Like Dre said, be comfortable. If you plan to be in high heels and you've never worn high heels before, it's going to be a long, painful day. Be comfortable.
Don't do it.
Yes, you can have copies of your executive summary with you because remember, you had this dark moment in time, 5 weeks, where you wrote it, and some of it may have skipped out of your head. So you can have a copy with it. So if someone should ask you a question, I had a copy in my hand the whole time. And if someone asked me a question to a specific portion, I opened it up and I said, this section. And if they said yes, and I could say, oh, A, B, C, and D is literally it. And say, okay, we just wanted to know that you knew what you were writing about.
There you go.
So that
We'll
worked.
test.
But just
don't be afraid to bring. I was gonna say same thing. Like I had printouts in my executive summary. I even had I had an actual pitch deck. It was just a few slides, but it was like enough where I felt like I can give this, to the judge. And then if they walk away and are like, oh wait, I forgot. Like, what did she say about that? Like, then at least they had something
The resource.
to refer back to that was sparked. Like, oh yeah, like she did say that. So you can absolutely, bring one-sheeters or like printouts. Some people have screens in their booth. Some people have product, stuff that like they can share a demo or whatever. There's a million different ways to do it depending on like what your business is.
Yeah.
Also, let me say for demo day, I know during the boot camp, I really expressed this to a lot of people is you have to consider that, yes, you can showcase your product as wildly as you can. But at the end of the day, if you're putting on a $10,000 display and your executive summary was a C-, it wouldn't matter, which is why it's the cherry on top. So when you're thinking of how you want to showcase your business, you got this $1,000. Will spending $5,000 in the hopes of being one of 10 for $20,000 be the best impact for your business? Really think about it. Think about how much you truly want to spend. Just like Dre said, think of how comfortable you want to be. It's a long day. Because remember, you have to pack everything up at the end of the night too.
Yep. All right. So we are getting close to time. I've got to bring Ed back in. But real quick, if just in a couple of words, I want to just go around and everybody give like a really quick piece of advice. And I'll start with Vanessa. For anybody that's in Star Garden 100 or any kind of pitch competition, or what you've learned, the most important thing you've learned?
You have to be prepared, and you have to go in saying that I'm going to win.
Okay.
Those are the two things I would say.
Dre?
I would say even if you do it, even if you don't get selected, who cares? Whether it's any pitch competition, if you don't win, keep it moving. Also, the people in the room can be potential investors, potential customers, potential mentors, community members, whatever. Like, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by just doing it. So just do it.
That's awesome.
I would say apply. Every opportunity every door that opens up, apply. Apply. Even if you don't get it this year, apply again. Guess what Stock Garden doesn't do? Dre's won twice. I tried a second time. There are people who try 3-4 times before they win. Don't give up.
Right.
Just keep applying. And there's so many opportunities out there. Just throw your throw your hat in the ring and try. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, no, you guys are the cream of the crop. And so this was great because, we tell people network, get advice from other people. And, and this was a great opportunity. And we thank SBDC for asking us to be on here and, to share, some wisdom, share a little bit about the Star Garden 100 competition and all that good stuff. So I don't know, is Ed going to join us again?
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was a wonderful conversation regarding Star Garden 100 and just pitch competitions in general. So once again, that competition, the demo day is coming up on the 17th, September 17th. Those in the area that want to come out and watch that, I want to say right now, good luck to all the finalists that are in there. I will be there at the event. And if you do need assistance, the SBDC is there to help you. I believe we have about 30 of the 100 finalists that are SBDC clients or have been SBDC clients. So if you're an SBDC client listening out there, reach out to your consultant if you need some assistance, if not from us, from somebody else to help with that executive summary and the cash flow projection that you're going to have to do along with that. Nobody talked about that today.
That's right. We really didn't, did we? It was more about pitching.
Absolutely. But that was great information. You can certainly go back and watch this YouTube video. If you want to contact those winners, they're more than willing to have you reach out to them as well to get some additional advice. So as we wrap up, I just want to go over a few things here. A couple of references that we got to make. If they can bring that slide up to references here or resources that we can offer you. We have what we call kind of our Bible, our start to operate in a small business. You can get that in 3 or 4 languages off our website, michigansbdc.org. Go to this YouTube channel to view this or other episodes of Meet the Contestants, Behind the Pitch. We're pulling back the curtain, trying to get these answers for you, and so keep that stuff in mind. Always can reach out for consulting appointments on us as well. Just go to the website once again. And then our next episode and final episode for the year of Meet the Contestants Behind the Pitch is going to be on Wednesday, October 28th. And if you're watching out there, we're going to give you a special opportunity that if you think you may want to be featured on the show, you can go in and apply, and we consider about possibly bring you on the show to talk about your experiences going through pitch competitions if you won or placed at either a local, state, or national level. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today's episode. We look forward to you joining us for our next episode, final episode in October. For once again, this is Meet the Contestants Behind the Pitch. We thank Star Garden 100 for what they're doing. Collectively, it's about $500,000 that they're going to give away, have access to, because all the winners get additional $20,000 loan if they want to take that out. So we're talking over $500,000 there. So that's why we say this is one of the biggest ones in the state of Michigan. So I'll let you get back to your day. I hope this has been a wonderful break for you. This is the 3 to 4 o'clock hour. Good time to take a break. See you next time for our next episode of Meet the Contestants Behind the Pitch. Have a great day.